you have made. We thank you for your goodness, your mercy, your grace, your kindness, your love toward us. We thank you, Lord, for always looking beyond our faults and seeing our needs. Father, as we get ready to prepare now, Lord, we know that for each of us, the time is coming where we will leave this place. Lord, help us as we try to get our house in order as best we can, so that there may be peace in our families with those who we leave behind. We come to you this evening lifting up our children, our grandchildren, our parents, our siblings, our spouses, our loved ones, family members, and our friends. We especially want to continue to lift up Sister Freddie. Father, we want to continue to lift up Sister Grace Cook's daughter, Deanna, as she recovers. We continue to lift up all those who are bereaved in our church and around us. We ask, Lord, that your grace and your favor will be upon us. Lord, that as we think about our departure from here, that it won't be stressful or heavy on us, but that we understand the reality that that is what shall come, and that's what we need to prepare for. Bless us, keep us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. So, um, our final wishes, and all of us have some things we'd like to happen when we get out of here. Sometimes we don't think about it, but with us having death so close, and not that all of these things, some of all these things kind of come up every time. I deal with this all the time, with all kinds of families, members, non members, friends. Just as a pastor, it's something that um, I have to become acquainted with. And um, my job as a pastor is to make things easier for you. And I believe that this is something that we all need to prepare for and be prepared for. I've seen too many families fight, split up, stop talking to each other because I've seen it firsthand, but also I've heard the stories about people, they didn't talk to me for 6 months because mama told me, and she didn't tell them, and she told them one thing in 1987, but and she changed her mind in 2015. And so I there was a real um, there was an incident where uh, this pastor said very publicly something that he wanted when he passed away. Very publicly, there's probably 400 people in the room who heard it, saw it, and when he passed away, the family did something different. And there were people who felt a certain type of way about that happening and how things happen. But the reality is, we don't know when he changed his mind. They said he changed his mind. People didn't believe them, but but um, those things happen. And so when you have things in writing, um, you can it can settle things because they know it came from you. And sometimes you may have to sit down and talk to your children as well. But this way, if you don't feel like talking to your children, it's at least it's on paper, and everybody know. If you may not be ready for that, they're not always ready for that conversation. So, but it is an inevitable part for all of us. Even though I'm 43, I've got to have it for me, because even though I may uh, feel healthy today, I may not feel healthy tomorrow. And I don't have to be uh, unhealthy to pass away. I drive up and down the highway almost every day. I'll be in the Bronx every day this week and next week, and so anything could happen to me at any time. I was so it's not something for old people to do. It's something that everybody should do at some point in time, especially when you've got different things going on. And so we won't spend a whole lot of time here, um, as we but things that we need to look at as those of you who are watching online. Um, if you're a member or if you come to church Sunday, you can get a copy of the booklet that we hand out. Um, but you should be here. Um, so I'm not making a whole bunch of them. And that's that. That's what the people who are here, they said y'all should be here. And I said amen. So take a screenshot or write it down. I don't know. I did make some extra copies. They laughing in here. Um, and I'm pressing the wrong clicker. And yes, it was Dee Dee was one of them, just one of them. um, First thing is, it's very simple. Your legal name, especially in our community, we go by different names. Um, I did not know Howard Goins' name was not Howard until I went to the hospital looking for Howard Goins, and they said James. I had to call Gloria to say, right, and you've known him forever, and so, but that's our culture, especially if you get too many of the same names. My grandfather was James Clyde Blackburn Sr. My dad is James Clyde Blackburn Jr. My brother is James Clyde Blackburn the third. So, but I ain't gone far enough because my nephew is James, and I got about 5 cousins named James, and so it. So then we got they always call my father, well, before he was, they would call him by a nickname. They would call him Baby. He was Baby. Then when he became a pastor, they called him Pastor Blackburn. Even his parents called him Pastor Blackburn. My brother became Jimmy. My cousin, the oldest James of the grandson, they call him Jim Bob. And then another cousin, they just called him James. He's the only one that just got called. And then my nephew, they called him Little James. And so it's you got all it. And so oftentimes, it ends up being a middle name, especially when women are named after each other. They often will use the middle name instead of. And so sometimes we don't really know somebody's real name. When I was going to visit with Marva's family, they kept saying Earlene, 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 and I just knew Marva. But I figured out that's who they had to be talking about. Earlene, okay, Marva, Earlene, okay, I got it. But some people, when they're nephews, Earlene, that was what they knew because that's what they legal name, address, mailbox or PO box. When you live in an apartment complex, what's your mailbox number? Over here, this is 12 Hanna Lane, but we use mailbox number 10. So somebody needs to know to go to mailbox number 10 to get the mail at this location where we are now. So and depending on where you live, that's something that they would need to know. Where's the key to your mailbox? What that key looks like. It's the pink key. It's got a rubber band around it. Something that they can know where they can go and collect your, because your mail will continue to come at least for some time. Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. They look, they'll be sending it until you tell them stop. Family, spouse's name, maiden name, simple children's names, grandchildren's names. And we all know or have known to find children or find out about children at death. And so, that's something that happens. And that's also one of those things that sometimes cause rifts in families. You got not step you got yeah, you got some half brothers, half sisters that you didn't know about, or people who've been married multiple times. You got all that all that stuff. Other dependents. Who else do you take care of? Sometimes your nephew lives with you, your cousin, your grandchild. They live with you. Or your friend's daughter lives with you. Your other dependents, who are they? Because there's some things that goes with them, and they kind of need some stuff, and it puts it in your mind on how you have to deal with them because they're depending on you. Um, we're having a conversation today about somebody who's who's taking care of a minor, and if something happens to them, what's going to happen with that minor? That's not their child. You know, when assets are divided, are you considering this minor child, that they'll be taken care, or do your children, are your children going to take care of them, or somebody else? Are they going back with their family? How does that work? Excuse me. Family name, mother's maiden. A lot of this stuff is also for your obituary. When they write these things out, you know, mother who they were born to, so and so and so and so. What's your mother's maiden name? Sometimes they may not know that, depending on how long ago that's been. Father's name, your siblings' names, your ex-spouse, and making sure that they are an ex. Because I've I've also seen where the person, they split up, but they were not divorced, and that first wife came back and was the one making decisions, and the only one who could legally make decisions, even though he had been with this other one for 20 years. That ex-wife was the one who could, because they were still married in the eyes of the law. It- She took, and she can take everything. She ain't got to have a funeral. She ain't got to do nothing. She could not claim the body, and make sure that y'all can't claim the body. That's why you better treat them right. But right, you didn't even, oh Lord, you didn't even know he was ever married to her. And yes, yeah. But that's one of the reasons why we have to do these things. Key people to contact upon my passing or incapacity. If you are unable to speak for yourself, who needs to be contacted? Of course, your spouse. But in the day that we live in, spouses don't even always live together. Not even in the same city or state. I know several people who they, because of work or whatever, spouses lived in different. I know a pastor. He got called to a church in another town. The wife and the kids stayed where they grew up until the children got out of high school. Then she moved down there. But if something happened in between time, who do you contact? And if you're incapacitated, who do you contact? Who's your contact your medical power of attorney? Who can make sure you have a medical power of attorney? Somebody who can make decisions for you when you can't speak and they know what you want. Yes. No. No. Power of attorney is the person who speaks for you when you cannot speak. But yes and no. A general power of attorney can speak for you about anything. Usually, your lawyer can be that. But your healthcare power of attorney can only make medical decisions for you when you cannot. If you're a minor, your children, your parents can. If you're married, your spouse can. But if you're not, who does that? Who do you want to be able to do that? They can, but who? You got two children. Which one? Or are you gonna let them argue about it? So you gotta, but you have to say that. You gotta say this. This is who I want. I shared with you before, and they might be watching because they watched. But I'm medical power of attorney for one of my members in Milwaukee because her family won't act right, and she said, Pastor, give them this amount of time and then let me go. I don't want to be, she's in the medical field. I don't want to be hooked up to those machines. I don't want to go through all that. They will let me lay there forever. Give them a certain amount of time and let me go. You make that decision. When she goes in the hospital, she'd say, I'm going in the hospital. I gotta have this. I gotta have that. Most of the time, she don't always tell me, or she'd tell me when she got out. But but they know to call me. They'll ask her, "Does your POA know that you having this?" And so if something happens, they have my phone number. They will call me. I will tell them, do what you can for this, and then I will contact her children and say, this is what's happening to your mother. Y'all need to get there as soon as y'all can. Contact whoever, contact your grandmother, contact whoever, and do that. You need a healthcare power of attorney when you cannot speak for yourself who knows what you want. We dealt with one. Somebody had a do not resuscitate, and the family didn't know that they had signed a do not resuscitate. So there was some confusion there. There was a little bit of upsetness there, but they need to know. Somebody needs to know, and somebody needs to be firm enough to be able to handle it. So it doesn't always necessarily need to be family if their mindset isn't there to say, unless you have it all written out and say, boom, boom, this is what I want. And oftentimes when you fill out the paperwork, you say exactly what you want, and they sign that document and you sign that document. But if you haven't decided exactly what you want, then it's up to me as the medical or whoever you have selected as the medical power of attorney. You were going to ask a question, or did I answer? Yes. 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 Same thing. Help somebody who speaks on your behalf. You need to contact your executor. The executor is the person that you appoint to to pass out your assets when you pass away. Somebody has to be in charge of what you have. Um, and what's funny is she is watching and she just texted me uh, about no because those kids of mine are very interesting. But anyway, um, you have things and if you're giving things to different people, somebody has to be the one responsible for giving those things to different people. That is the executor of your estate. Sometimes it's your lawyer, but if it's your lawyer is going to charge you. They're going to take a piece of that in order to pass those things out. So you may want, somebody, your pastor, they need to call me when you pass away so that I know and we can begin to do what we need to do here to be able to minister to the family, make sure that people are together, and sometimes walk families through this process. You may have gone through this process, and you may not have, but your children haven't gone through this process. So when when Brother Goins passed away, well, his son is part of the bereavement ministry at Beulah. So he's done it with other people. So he knew who to call. He knew what to do. And with him being in hospice for a few weeks, and him being in hospice and still being able to talk and speak and everything, they could get all those things together. When Marva passed away, it was so sudden, and they had never been through it. You know, they called me. Her sister called me. Right before we did prayer that morning, and then um, and then her son, her daughter-in-law called me. Later on that morning. I said, okay, this is what you're on your way up here. Okay, um, call Mr. Rose. This is his number. We can do this. We can do this. We can have it at the funeral home. We can have it at Springfield. We can do this. And then I call Mr. Rose and say, I got some people calling you. I kind of help facilitate that process for the family when they know to call me to just to make it easier on them because when everybody's not always thinking straight, they don't know the process. They don't know, that, we got to call the cemetery too. We got to find a plot, or are we cremating them? Are we doing a direct burial? Do I have to spend all this money? Sometimes you need somebody to go to the funeral home with to keep them from paying more than they need to pay. It can be expensive, but it does not have to be. In New York State, you don't have to buy a coffin from the funeral home. You can provide your own coffin, and you can order a coffin from Walmart or Sam's Club. Yes, you can in New York State. You do not have to be embalmed. If but they embalm you so that your body will look nicer longer if you're going to have a service that's 4 or 5 days away. But when money is tight, you can do a direct burial where basically they put you right in the ground if you don't want to be cremated, and you can have a memorial service, or you have the funeral the next day. you know uh, Jews don't get embalmed. Muslims don't get embalmed. You don't have to be embalmed. That's not. And so sometimes the funeral home would tell you these things that you think you need to have, and they play on your sympathy. You wanna put mother away really nice, don't you? Look at this lovely. This is soft. She dead. She don't know if this thing is soft or not. She hard as a rock. You trying to all these things that sometimes happen, and so you might need somebody to. Sometimes if you're of that mind, you can go get those things set before you go, so that your family doesn't have to deal with them. But that is something that I would do to help them through that process if if they ask me to do that. And so I let them know, you know, this is what I can help you with this, just to make it easier on them so that they can try to grieve, and they're going to be, that's the first list. These are the people to contact before the service. These key people here immediately. But then these are people who need to be contacted about your passing. Friends and family. And I did so they're on this it's they're on the same thing. It's actually, yeah, they're you can make copies of it and make more. But no, really, the reality is there are some people who are close to me that everybody doesn't know. They don't. I have a friend who's in jail right now, and I mean, Rihanna hasn't met him, and um, some of my other good friends who know him don't know how to get in contact with him. Some of them don't even know he's in jail. So with this list, okay, this is how you contact him, you know, and let him know something has happened to me, because he'll call me every night. He'll email me, to see what's going on, and I'll get help when he needs it, and so on and so forth. So and there are other friends who I don't talk to all the time or talk about all the time, who I would like, they need to know. They need to call so and so. Call this preacher. I know you don't hear me, but call him and let him know. They'll at least send you $100, on my passing. Um, so friends and family, and then other people to contact, name and relationship. Other key people to contact. These are people who maybe before the funeral, maybe after the funeral. Who is your lawyer? Who is your estate planner? These things you may not necessarily if if you if your burial is taken care of, all these people can wait till after the funeral. But if you need to get money together, then some of these people you might need to contact before the funeral. Who's your estate planner? Who's your accountant if you have one? Who's your financial planner? Maybe your accountant may be the person who's been doing your taxes. They're not your accountant, but they've been doing your taxes, so they have, certain information about you, because your children will have to file your taxes, or your heirs will have to file your taxes after you've passed away. Yeah, when I file my taxes, yeah, is this for a person who is deceased? Because that still has to have. Because if you're getting some money back, or expect to be getting something back, you want that. Now, if you owe, don't do it. Let it go. Let them come find you. If you have a financial planner, your 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 medical people. You know, your doctor sends you something every year or however long. You need to make an appointment. Your dentist every 6 months. You need to make an appointment. Those people, and then healthcare people who might need to be contacted. We all have, or we don't all have, but some of us we have different doctors. Your cardiologist, your lung doctor, your nephrologist, all those other people who help with your health care. Those are people you can contact after the funeral, unless it's something mysterious. You know, if I just drop dead, y'all need to call everybody, find out what's going on, and call the police. He just dropped dead. He was coughing, but he was. They need to contact the church. Now they should have already contacted me, but make sure that they have that information too. If you have a preferred funeral home, typically if it's here, I'm gonna send them to Rhodes. Um, that's typically what I'm gonna do. But if you have a preference, you put down who you prefer. You may not like Rhodes. You may not like anybody, but if you have a preference, then you put that there. What'd you say? You got to give it to somebody. But sometimes, when I was pastoring in Milwaukee, there was a family. A lady died, and they didn't have enough money to bury this lady. They borrowing money to bury the lady, but they driving up to the church in two limousines. So he done sold them on two limousines, and they ain't got enough money to bury these people, and then didn't give me nothing. So I just from that point forward, I would never recommend him for anything because you can't. Those things you've got to take care of first. If you going in the ground, then that's got to be paid for. And once all that's paid for, if you got money for a limo, then get you a limo. But take care of what you need to take care of, and you have to pay for the other thing. You don't have to have a vault. You don't have to have a vault. Some cemeteries might request you to have a vault. That's right. Because you got to buy a vault. You got to pay for them to open the ground. You got to have a casket or something to be buried in, and then you have to pay them to close the ground. And all the vault does is keep the grass from getting lumpy. No, as soon as it rains, your casket is full of water. That vault is full of water. It's not sealed. What it does is the ground will eventually settle, and the vault keeps it. It will eventually cave in. It will at some point eventually cave in. But they do the vaults because it's going to happen at some point anyway, even with the vault, to keep the grass in the cemetery yard from being lumpy because the plots will cave in. That's that's all it is. That is. It's very expensive if you don't know what you don't have to have and what you have to have. It's a business. It's a money making venture, and so they want to sell you on what they can. Yep. That's it. That's it. Marva was cremated. So they'll charge you to bring the body to the service. I would say have it at the funeral home. Because then they're not charging your family to bring it to the to the if they have. I mean, in the Rose new place is nice and it's big, but I mean it is in Newburgh, so people would have to cross the bridge. But the reality is, they charge you to bring the body to the church and to bring it back and transport it to the crematory. So if you have a person funeral home, if there's a cemetery or a crematory, if you've already prepared those things, those are your desires. Those are things that we need to know about. If you have a funeral insurance policy, separate from a life insurance policy, a funeral insurance policy. If you're being buried, what do you want on your headstone? If you're being cremated, do you want your ashes spread at a different place? Do you want to, you know, some given to your children? I mean, people do all kind of spread them on the Hudson River. I always like to go boat it. I mean, I didn't make that up. It is. Most places it is. Listen, cause they gonna do what you want them to do because they working for y'all. But they gonna tell y'all if something happens, that's on y'all. It's not on us. They y'all fine. Y'all could have, but the people. Hmm. Well, that's there's so many things that they do. They make jewelry out of them. They make diamonds out of them. They make a whole they do all kind of things with those ashes. But if that's something you want, then you can say that if you want to, or they can they got they got no, you just won't know. I mean, they just gonna hand you gonna get a bag of ashes. They will literally give you a bag of ashes unless you purchase a urn, and you can put the urn in a mausoleum if you want to. Because your body doesn't fully break down. Now, some crematoriums will grind them up into into a into a fine powder. Um, but yeah, they'll just grind because your bones won't totally break down. They won't totally, so they'll just put them in a grinder to smooth it out. But I mean, your pacemaker is in there. Your hip replacement is in there. um, Things to include in my obituary. So we did the names of the people at the top half, but other things to include. I like this and I like that, and um, if they don't know about what you did at church, then they may need to know what you did at church so that that can be included um in those things. I've seen where Church isn't even mentioned in some obituaries of people who were like, so make sure that it's included in there that they were part of a church, they were faithful. Um, then your assets, what you have. Make sure people know what you have. If you have any property, yes, you do. I already told you. If you got more than $75, they'll fight over it. I know. I mean, not. No, I mean, I know. I. But people just want something. You don't know. There's something they got they eye on. It's this. It's this ring my father got. He didn't told me I could have it, but I need to make sure he tell everybody else that I can have it. Like this, listen, everybody, just give it to me now. That's no wait. But and I don't really because I don't wear jewelry. My fingers swell up when as soon as I put a ring on. Um, but property, and this is more like it's people. Some people have multiple homes. You may own a timeshare, um, or anything else that may not be at your home. I have a vehicle in Milwaukee. That's sitting in somebody's garage. But I so when I left Milwaukee, I went to Florida. I lived in Florida. I came here from Florida. So I drove a truck and I pulled one car with the truck. I couldn't pull two cars. And the thing was always, okay, I'll go back and I'll get it. I'll go back and I'll get it. I'll go back and I'll get it. And Dee Dee, anyhow, any so any property, any legal documents, you know, your car has a you got a title for your car. Um, things like that. There's a deed. If you have a safety deposit box, any of those types of things, any legal documents that they may need to know, your honorable discharge, all those type of things. Key locations and instructions. Where the keys? If you got a security system, what's the alarm code so we can get in there? What if there a warranty on anything, and then things like that. What's your vehicle, make, model? Who's the financing company? Where are the keys? You got to jiggle the key to make it start. Anything you got to put in notes. The right the driver's side, uh, rear window don't roll up, so don't roll it down. Whatever it is that you have to do. Well, right, it won't start. You go try to get my car. I like this Cool Whip one. My new car, my car now is Cool Whip two. But Cool Whip one, it ain't gonna start. It's not gonna. It won't start. It won't. It won't. It won't do anything. Matter of fact, I had to get it towed from one friend's house to this house when I on a trip home. Um, but your vehicles, any type of investments you might have, um, where they are, who they're with. We talk about location. What company are they with? Account numbers. If you have a contact person, where are those statements or anything? If they're in a specific location. Insurance benefits. This is your life insurance, whether you have whole or term. You know, what kind of is it a whole life or is it a term life? Did you borrow anything against your whole life insurance? Is there anything? Who do I call? Where do I get that stuff? Employer benefits. if you're still working, who do they call about that stuff? Where they get if you got if you die with PTO, your family should get your PTO money. All of that should come. Also, if you're working and your family is on your insurance, they need to know who to be able to contact in order for that. How does that work? When do they cut the insurance off? And those type of things they need to know. Social Security, any veterans benefits that you may have. How did he get this? Because Brother Goins, he's buried in the veterans segment of Fishkill Rural. So that's something that's afforded to you as a veteran with an honorable discharge. Who do I contact? Where do I get that from? Is there any death benefits with that? Money owed to me. Who owed me money? Listen, my daddy told me you 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 what and really not so much necessarily that, but there are certain things, um like maybe you have an annuity or you got a settlement or anything money like that that is owed to you that's coming in on a regular basis, that they need to know that's this is coming in. Or if you have rental property, or you put down, Francine borrowed $75 and she still owe me. Now you ain't gonna get it, but tell her, make sure she know money I owe to others. So they need to know who we owe, because they could come after it. They could come to your estate for that. So at least they will be prepared, and they can say, depending on what it is, who it is, at least, talk to a lawyer to find out, what their options are, what they have to do, what they don't have to do. Um, Personal items, jewelry, and heirlooms. We all got some nice stuff that's real, and we all got some fake stuff that look nice. They need to know which is which before they look silly going to the jeweler trying to trade in, you know, your cubic zirconia or your glass. It's just glass. It ain't even a cubic zirconia. But where it is, and who you want it to go to if you don't have it spelled out in a formal will, those type of things. Business information, bank accounts. You might have multiple of those, old credit union accounts, um, CDs, or anything that you may have, savings bonds, all those kind of things. And if you do online banking, what's the username, password? What's the PIN for your ATM card? It is a lot. But the thing is, your it's a lot for you, and you know all this stuff. Imagine for your family who does not know any of this stuff, trying to go through just the kind of, you know the pain it is, and some of y'all have had to do it, and you know what it was to go through, and would have loved to have something like this. um, Mortgage, loans, credit card. If you got a mortgage on your home, the bank is they still gonna want their money. So, how do we deal with that? Do we sell it? Do we excuse me, is it owned outright? What is it? Where's the paperwork for it? um, where's your will if you have a will? And you can hand write a will and get it notarized at and that can be sufficient. You don't have to. And if you're internet savvy at all, you can download one and fill it out yourself. You don't have to pay anybody to do that. But where is it? And the more complicated your life is or your finances are, the more likely you would need that. If everything's going to one person, then just say everything I have goes to, and give them this packet. um, any notes for your health care? If you have a health care power of attorney form, paper that says this person is the health, that where is that? Where's your passport? Where's your birth certificate? Your family's going to need these things to be able to get all kinds of things. Where's your social security card, driver's license, marriage certificate, tax documents? When your sister-in-law that you didn't know was your sister-in-law showed up, she had to go find her marriage certificate. And in order to come in and say and collect, to say I'm the rightful ones, since he didn't have a will. And your will does not trump the beneficiaries listed on your insurance. So if you have somebody different on your insurance, and you can say, I'll leave everything in my will to Susie Q, but you got Billy Bob on your insurance, Billy Bob is still going to get that insurance money, even though your will says they'll get it. They might get everything else. It's just not included in your assets. It's not included in your assets. So your will, your physical assets, your home, all that. But if you have a beneficiary listed, that person supersedes. That doesn't matter. Tax documents, where those things. If you've been divorced, your divorce papers to say, hey, they ain't got no claim to nothing. Life insurance, your vehicle insurance, because that's going to change at some point. Home insurance, any type of other insurances you may have. I think that might be the end of it. Any other papers you may have that they may need to know about, to look at, to check and see. Oh, and this is the end of it. Your internet accounts, usernames and passwords. And because they may need it will be easier for them to do some banking, to close accounts if they know how to go in and log in. We all know people who've passed away, they still got a Facebook page. But even on Facebook, if you go into your settings, you can decide what happens when you pass away. And so I have decided, I have appointed my sister and one of my friends. They'll be able to control my page when I pass away. So they can, she can, she'll be able to log. She'll have to prove that I've passed away, but then she'll be able to say, Daniel has passed, and we now have control of this. She'll be able to do that without my username and password, because I have that set up that way. But surely, if something happens to me, somebody's got to get in and, close it down if you want to close it down. Sometimes we leave it up as a memorial so people can go back, and they don't. Right. But you may not want to shut it down. Like, one of my friends, his birthday, he passed away a few years ago, but his birthday was the other day. So I go on his page and I just, say, I always used to say rest easy, and do little prayer hands, something like that. Just, so some people want to leave that type of stuff up, but, what's these people name? Optimum gonna keep charging you. They gonna keep getting that money. T-Mobile and Verizon. They gonna keep getting that money, and they're gonna make them go through all kind of hoops to prove that that you are deceased, and that that person is the person who has the right to close the account, because they want to get that money as long as they can. The bank is going to want to keep your money as long as they can. So even though, you're the beneficiary, they're going to send you a check 10 days from now so that they can keep that money on their coffers as long as they can. That's just things that, that I've watched people deal with and have helped people go through, as they've gone through, these kind of times. And all of us will likely go through a similar time, um, in our life for someone, or somebody's going to go through it for us. And so, we make this available, and hopefully for you it's been beneficial, even for those of you who are watching online, that it's been a help for you, um, as Lord, I done streamed this whole thing without showing anything. They ain't seen nothing. All they've seen is, I'm looking at the thing. It just says thank you. They see what's on the right side. It just says thank you for service. But no, I'm gonna put them. I'll just put all the. I'll put the slides up on the. They ain't seen nothing. I'm sorry if you've been watching and you ain't seen nothing. Somebody should have texted me, Paula. You should have texted me when you talking about you was listening. You ain't seen nothing. You should have said, I don't see. You should have said, I don't see anything. It can be good to get funeral insurance. Um, but if you have life insurance, you don't need funeral insurance. So a funeral insurance policy is gonna be, 5 to 10, maybe $15,000. It's not gonna be a really large, and it's just to cover your funeral. But if you have life insurance, then typically you'll have enough to cover that. Now, for if you have a whole life policy, you don't have to worry about it. But if you have a term life, it has an expiration date. So I have one term policy that expires at 85. I have another term policy that expires in 20 years. So the one for 20 years is really for DJ, so that as long as he's a child, he will have enough money to live until he's an adult. He's on his own. He's able to, if I drop dead, he'll have a few $100,000 to be able to just make it. Um, when when we bought that electric car, I told Rihanna, you need to get a term policy, a cheap one, to pay for this expensive car. If something happened to you, I'm not paying. I didn't want it. We got to be able to pay for it. You purchase a house, then you might want to get a policy that's a 20. If you got a 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, then you get a 20-year or 30-year term, so that if something happens to you, your spouse, if you're married, isn't saddled with this debt that they can't pay. So it's just a pay. So you have to be, you use it for what it's for. A term policy is going to be a lot less expensive than a whole life policy, But if your term policy has expired, so say I get to 85, I'm still alive, then maybe I get burial insurance at 85 just to pay for my funeral, because at that point I should have enough assets. My home should be paid for. I should be at the point where I don't have a lot of debt. That's really life insurance. Term life insurance is for paying off, is for your survivor to be able to pay off your debts or be able to continue to live in your absence. So that's why I got a 20-year plan for DJ that keeps, he'll be able to pay for school, he'll be able to do whatever he needs to do if I die while he's still a child. The 10-year one for the car that we can cancel as soon as it's paid for, because it's paid for. Now we don't owe anything on it. No need to just, throwing this away if nothing's gonna happen, if it's not gonna benefit me. Excuse me. But at a certain point, I'm not supporting DJ anymore. So I don't necessarily need to spend money on this life insurance for DJ to be able to live when I'm gone, because at a certain point, DJ ought to be able to live on his own. So now I've stopped putting that money there, and I can invest it in something else that's going to give him just some cash. Or I'm paying off my house so that I'm able to live a little bit better. But then once if my house is paid off, all I need is $5,000 or $10,000 to be paid to pay for my funeral and get some people some chicken. And what else is there? At a certain point, and once I'm 75, that'll be, 32 years from now. Hopefully, I would be in that place where, Rihanna she has a retirement. She has all of that. She won't be dependent on me for anything financially. If a home is paid for, then that's not an issue. And DJ will be grown in 30 some odd years. He ain't gonna be living in my house, I tell you that. He ain't. No, it depends on your situation. See, most people look at whole life as more of an investment because it builds cash value that you could borrow from in the event that something happens. It's a low risk savings plan that accrues interest, um, and you can borrow from it. That's what whole life is. Well, I mean, it depends on your situation. So I bought my term plan when I was single, and um, I bought enough to. Um, I bought it when I was in Milwaukee. The church would get, I don't know, maybe $125,000, and the rest would go to nieces, nephews, or whoever. And but I had no house. I had nobody to that I was supporting. So it was just, I really just bought it because it would help the church if something happened to me, because the previous pastor had died and the church was in a bad situation when I came in, so that they wouldn't be in that position if something happened to me, and to help my friend who sold insurance, because there's nobody to leave it to. I mean, somebody, my nieces and nephews, just gonna have, they'll be able to buy cars or something. Um, so my when your position changes, but when I bought my first house, I got a policy to be able to pay that off, so that the house wouldn't be lost if something happened to me. So, but even that was a term, because again, I'm only going to be paying for this house for so long, and the term is less expensive. And life insurance in the term is to pay off debts. Whole life is more for living. And so you can, if you have an emergency, so, insurance doesn't cover something, then I can borrow from my whole life policy and I pay it back over time. And so it has a death benefit, but it also has a cash value with it as well. And so that cash value is something I could always use. And if I die, then they subtract what I took away from that death benefit, and that's what they get. Whereas term life, I can't borrow from it. You just get it when I die. And if I outlive it, then they just say, thank you for this money. And that's why it's less expensive. So it really depends on where you are in life. I wouldn't buy a whole life insurance policy if I were you. I'd buy if you needed some, I would get a term. It's going to be less expensive. I don't think you have any debts or any major debts. You're retired. You've got to get your aren't you retired? Yeah, I thought so. I mean, she looked at her like I said something crazy. You are. No. So, right, you don't absolutely not. No way for you to need whole. But how long have you had it? If I were you, borrow that money, pay whatever debt you have off. It depends on what stage you are in life. At this point, who gonna get? Do you rent or you have a condo? You rent. Okay, you got a car note. What do you owe? Borrow that money from yourself. Uh, Make a huge donation to the Star Baptist Church, and take a cruise around the world. Because at this point, no, she don't. Because if she's had it for a while, there's probably enough cash value in it for her to she can put away $10,000 to bury it. You can pay for your funeral today. You pay for your funeral today. It don't matter how much things increase. Pre-plan your funeral. Prepay for it. Then you don't have to worry about it when that time comes. You can use that cash value that you have today. If I were you, that's what I would do. Buy yourself a new car. Do what, but use that because nobody is depending on you for anything at this point. Pay your mama's property taxes for 2024. But really, I mean, after a certain point, it doesn't make sense to carry it. and it depends on what stage you are in life. So you kind of have to balance it. Um, you gotta kind of know what makes sense for you at that stage in life. You are. I mean, you live in the dream. Listen. I would go cash that thing in. Hey, I want it all. I want it all, and then stop paying because that's money that is really is. They take that money that you've given and they've invested it, and they give you part of that investment becomes your cash value. The other part of it is the money that they just keep. That's how they make their money. When with term life, they gave me one to that last till I was 85 because they expect me to live past 85. And because they expect me to live past 85, then they'll be able to keep everything that I've put into it. On the chance that based on my health at the time that I got it, based on my age at the time that I got it, the likelihood for me to die without them making money was slim. So that's how they determine your rate. That's why it costs more at an older age to get some than it does at a younger age. So you really want, if you want to get anything, you could get some burial insurance, but I wouldn't do that. Take that cash value, pay for your funeral tomorrow. What's left, go buy you a car after you make a nice donation to Star Bethlehem Baptist Church. But if she's got 25,000 in cash value, they will give her $25,000. That's the cash value of that policy. Right. You take some of that 25,000 and you pay for your burial. You pay for your service. Then you don't have to get any more insurance. And you don't have to pay any more insurance. So that's one last bill that you have to pay. And you've got this money that you can enjoy because nobody's going to be without if something happens. And that's why I have my terms structured the way they are, because at that point, at believe, everybody who's depending on me will be okay. I believe DJ will be okay. If his mama is still around, then she'll have her retirement well before I'm 85. She'll be living off that. She won't be depending on me to be bringing in any income. And I can invest another way. If you're going, some people use a whole life as an investment. Um, but there are other ways to get a better return than whole life. But it is a safe, easy way to invest. It really is an investment. And if you had a financial advisor, they would have told you this. Most of us don't. No, it's not a sin to get burnt. You here's the thing. In order to be buried, you have to be buried on land you own. If you don't own any land, you're cremated. That's why they buy a plot. Some people, that's the only land they ever owned in their life is their burial plot. So the whole time that the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they were cremated. Only person who wasn't was Joseph. Because Joseph said, "Don't leave my bones in Egypt. Take them with y'all to the promised land." And so what would happen is you when you read through Genesis, Abraham buys a cave. He buys this cave, and that's where he buries Sarah. And they would keep going back to that same cave to bury people until it was full, because that was the land that they owned. They always owned it. That was what it was for. But if you did not own land, then you had to be cremated, because you couldn't you couldn't do that to anybody else's land. Now, by the time you get to Jesus's day, you couldn't even. They would just reuse the same tomb. So Jesus wasn't the only person buried in that tomb. He was the first person, but they would usually build it, and they would leave those bodies there for a little while, a year or two, and then they would move it somewhere else, because it was too expensive for somebody to do. It's like it is now. I mean, it's almost $1,000 to open up the ground. Right. He ain't got, but some cemeteries will let you stack, and you don't have to buy another plot. You just pay for the opening and the closing. Right. But what's going to happen to with the rest of them? Is there room? Is there room? And see, that's those things that we don't. He passed before them, so they did that. But what they should have did was they should have bought everybody's, and maybe they couldn't afford to at the time because this could be expensive. But some families will do. Um, they'll just buy they'll buy a bunch of them. My pastor in Milwaukee, it must have been a new cemetery, and he bought 20, 30 funeral plots, and he held on to many of them, but he would, because if you can get them at a good rate, and he got them at a real good rate, which is why he bought so many of them. But as Pat, yeah, I mean, so that's to open the ground. Did you get the plot next to right? But so so um as we because we deal with this a lot, you know, we can get we're sometimes privy to things before everybody else. And so when I get information, I share it. Um, and because they want our recommendation, because we deal with these things a lot, they sometimes do things for us. Yeah, I mean it's a they do business, so they you know they right. No, they got them absolutely, but you can't be there. Right. Yeah, no, they have that's their section. And once that section is full, they might have to go to Albany somewhere to get. But there. Where's the next veteran cemetery? Where's the next closest one? That's what I mean. So they might have to go. It might have to be like the I think the New York City firefighters actually go to Albany. Like that's where they because the city is full. So they literally all the way up 87 to Albany in a huge motorcade, and it's the worst thing to be behind. Um, just just quit whatever you're doing that day. But that's what ends up after a certain point. You it's full, and you have to go somewhere else. So we'd have to take long. Yeah, pull up. But that's yeah. s- there's all kind of different. Yeah, yeah. They are more courteous. They would not cut through a funeral procession. They'll stop and pull over. Yeah, escort. Right. Yeah.